Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at MATIC. This is going to be a lower time frame video. We do have a higher time frame video up above, so check that out if you haven't already. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Okay, so we're going to talk about the two accounts that we're currently following, which are the most likely from our macro analysis, is that we are either looking for this move to the downside as a 5-wave structure, where this becomes 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and then we're looking for this 5th wave to the downside. Now, the common area that we look for rejection of a 4th wave would be here towards this 87.71 to this 68.27. Now we have actually come up into the zone, and if this is a 5th wave, ideally what we want to see here is price start to break to the downside here in 5-wave structure. Now some targets to the downside that we have here is this area here of this 4232 to this 2797. So this would be our common area based off of our 4th wave. Now there are other ways of working this out. The 0.382 of the wave 1 to 3 would actually be here at this 49.05, and the 0.618 of the wave 1 to 3 would be here towards this 24.27, as well as that the 1 to 1 of the wave 1 would be here towards this 26.61. So towards the lower end of this, there is a little bit of a cluster which is aligning, but what we need to be careful of is if we do see a 5-wave structure down here, potentially we could actually look to find support higher up at this 0.382, and we might not reach these lower targets, so we need to just be on the lookout for that possibility. So within this count, effectively what we'd be saying is we're looking for a 5-wave move to the downside, looking to develop. Now there isn't enough to actually indicate that this is playing out currently. What we'd be looking for is something along these lines. So at the moment I'm just looking at the structure as A, B, and then we're looking for the C wave to the downside. But if we do see a move down here towards this 53.73, this would actually align then with the idea that from further back here, instead of this being an A wave, we could have this as 1, 2, and then effectively this next move is already starting as a 3rd wave, though we'd have to move down towards this zone of this 53.73 for confirmation of this. Now, currently looking at the internals, we're going to come in here. The way I'm currently looking at this structure is that this is 1, 2, this is another 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Potentially in here for wave 3. Now we could also argue that this 4th and 5th is like this, where this is actually just 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because there is no overlap in that way, in which case we would get one less 5th wave to the downside. So what I'm looking for here is ideally one more drop down, and then from there we're going to have to see how we react. If we get 3 waves back to the upside here, then we could get this yellow count, which could look to push us down lower here towards this 1-to-1 area, which would be the 63.84. Now the problem is within that idea of this being an impulse to the downside, we'd have to say that we're starting to get some extension here, but it's very difficult to say where if that's the case. And what we could have is that this is 1, 2, 1, 2, this becomes another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we get this additional legs to the downside in this way. But until we actually see price start to drop away here, it's going to be very difficult to say exactly where that extension is. So we are going to have to just monitor this and see how it develops. But effectively, as long as we continue to hold these wave 2 positions, which would be the 76.84, we can potentially look for continuation down. Now within the blue count, we have invalidation lower down here at this 73.88. At the moment, this is just looking like a corrective move to the upside. We can potentially count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th wave with a diagonal. We'll go over that idea in a second. But effectively, what we could still have here is that this could actually just be, this 4th wave completed already. And now we're looking for this 5th wave. Now this 5th wave, because of this size of these internals, is looking like it could actually look to overshoot this area here of the 68.65 to the 67.10. As long as we remain below this level here of the 73.65, it is looking likely that we could see continuation to the downside in this 5th wave. Now the way that I would be actually looking at this to play out would be something along these lines. So within this structure here, we'd then have to count this as another 1 and a 2 here, and potentially we're setting up 1 and 2. So it's possible that this becomes 1, 2, and then we get 3, 4, 5. Now the key area we want to hit is the 67 cents. If we hit that 67 cents, this would confirm the idea here that this becomes 1, 2. This all becomes 3, 4, and 5. Now it is also possible that this wave 2 is incomplete, and we could see one more push to the upside here. 72.96 to the 72.06 is going to be our possible rejection area here. And then what we'd be looking for is a 5-wave move to the downside, looking for that 1618 to confirm it. Invalidation of this idea comes by crossing above the 73.64. Now if we do cross back above that level, it becomes difficult then to say whether this is now actually completed into this low, which wouldn't make a lot of sense given the current structure, or whether this is actually looking to reverse up and invalidate this idea of a 5-wave move to the downside. So we're going to have to keep an eye on it. We're going to go over that idea of that invalidation in a second here. But what we could be looking for is that this could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the most immediate move that I'm looking for, invalidation at this 73.64. If we see 3 waves up here, fail to break above this white area here, this 72.96, effectively then the most likely continuation would be to the downside, in my opinion. I would be keeping an eye on this 1-to-1 to see if we just get a 3-wave move to the downside here, which wouldn't make a lot of sense unless this is becoming A, B, and C, and we're getting some kind of a flat. But the ideal location we'd be looking for to confirm this idea is a push down towards this 3rd wave in this way. Now, as you can see then, what this would mean is that we could be potentially extending out here. And if we do see something like that, we'd have to just be on the lookout that within here we don't have something like this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we'd have another 4th and a 5th and another 4th and a 5th, which could look to push us down towards those lower targets that we're looking for this idea of this 5th wave. Though at the moment, you know, it's looking very difficult to try and say that we're getting down to that area, but until we actually invalidate it, we need to just be aware that this idea of a 5th wave is still possible here. So what we would be looking out for is that, you know, we could see something like this as 1, 2, we get another 1, 2 here, and then we look to break down for that 3, 4, 5, and then actually probably looking for this 382 target if that's going to be the case. But until we actually start breaking, particularly this high here, this 89.19, we need to be very cautious of this continuation down. Now, within the more bullish idea here, what we were saying is that we could actually see this as a corrective move to the downside, and we could say that this is completed where this is A, B, and C, and then we're looking to push up for either a C wave, in which case our target is going to be here towards this $1.50, or alternatively, if this is going to become an impulse, we want to see price push past this $2.11. So if we do see something like this, effectively what we want to see is 5-wave structure developing from further down here. Now, if this is still a 5-wave move that is not completed, where this is, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, potentially we could still see price come down one more time for that 5th wave, which would align quite nicely with potentially coming into this 0.786 here at this 47.40. Now that would align with that 5-wave move still to come to the downside, though we have come into this target box, so we are looking for that possibility of a bigger move to the upside here, where we could see a bigger ABC pattern, something along these lines. Now, if this is the case, effectively what we are looking for on the smaller time frame here is it's very hard to say that this could develop into an impulse. There's the only way we could potentially argue that this could be a 5-wave move would be to say that this is wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're looking at this as a 5th wave. Now, it wouldn't be very clean in this way, and what we'd have to say then is that this is expanding, which I don't like. It's not very reliable shape within Elliott wave theory, and what we'd be looking for effectively then would be a C wave to the upside. Now, given our current level of where we are, 1-to-1 would actually be here towards this $1.08. Although we need to also just be on the lookout for this potential of this 0.618, which is sitting here towards this 93.380, which would bring us back up into these highs. If we do see something like this, there is also the potential that we could also argue that maybe within here we have something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a B wave, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we could actually see this develop as just a diagonal pattern, something like this, a contracting diagonal as a wave 1, which is something we'll have to keep an eye on here. Alternatively, this could just be an A wave. We're looking for a B wave, and then we're looking for a C wave to the upside. Now, this would look to invalidate that idea of that 4th wave, and then what we'd be looking for is this continuation up. Now, our target box for this is this 74.54 to this 59.08. So we've already come down here to this 50% level. So just being a little bit cautious that within this, we could start to see some kind of price action to the upside if this does look to be a low point here. Though, like I said, you know, within these internals here, it is suggesting that there is still a little bit more downside to come. If we do come down lower here, what we could see is that we could move down towards that 1-to-1 level, which would bring us into this golden pocket area. So if we do see this as just A, B, and then we get those additional legs to the downside in that 5-wave count, potentially then we could see price come back into these levels, find support, and then look to push to the upside. Though until we actually break this channel, we'd have to be very careful here that, you know, even if we do get something like a 3-wave move here to the downside, we need to be careful of that idea of forming a 5th wave diagonal if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, looking for those lower targets still. So the key thing is here, we do have potential for a reversal here, but we need to see whether we actually follow structure from this point. So I'm going to go over this, and you know, until we actually break those ideas of the 5-wave moves to the downside, so looking for this idea of this 5th wave down here. So until we actually break above these levels, which would be this 73.88, effectively we can look at that as the more likely option in this case. Though if we are looking at this idea of a break to the upside, potentially what we could see is something along these lines. Now, there's not a lot to indicate that within this structure here, this isn't going to move to the downside, but what we'd be basing this off of is saying that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a 5-wave structure. Now, if that is the case here, this could potentially just be ABC, in which case this is a flat correction here, in which case we're going to be expecting strong volatile moves to the downside, and this high to maintain. Alternatively, if this is going to become a bigger A, B, and a C pattern to the upside here, potentially what we could argue then is that within this structure we have something like this as an expanding diagonal. Once again, I don't like them, so we'd have to see confirmation of this, and effectively to confirm something like this as a diagonal pattern to the upside here, what we need to see is price move back above the 73.43. If we do see price starting to move to the upside here in this way, where we see this as 1, 2, and then potentially a series of 1s and 2s in here, and then we start to see price doing something along these lines where we see it extend up in this way, then effectively what we could be looking for is this 1-to-1 target. If we do see something like a 5-wave move develop to the upside here, we're going to have to watch how it reacts. If we get 3 waves to the downside and then look to hold this low here, what we could start to see is price could start to extend out, which would align with the idea of this move actually coming up in that 1, 2, 3, 4, and then looking for a 5-wave move to the upside. But like I said, confirmation would only be at the 77.01. There is potential here that we could see this, but first we need to see that break, that invalidation of this as a wave 4, which would be here at this 73.90, and then we'd need to see price actually starting to break back above some of these key highs, because like I said, potentially we could argue that within here you have something like another 1 and a 2, even though counting this structure as a 5-wave move in that way would be very difficult unless we say we have something like this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 as a diagonal once again. But because of the fact that we're counting these as diagonals, it is less likely than when we just have a clean-cut 5-wave structure, because we could also just argue it's 3 waves in that instance. So what I wanted to see here is if we are looking at this possibility of a break to the upside, we need to hit this 77. We need to get back above this high. And ideally, what I want to see if we are looking at this idea where we're going to get a bigger C wave up is a break of this channel line, which is sitting here towards this 82.98. The ideal thing you'd want to see here, if we are looking at this idea of a break to the upside in that way, is that effectively what we want to see here is for the C wave to actually look to play out, what we would want to see is this actually develop as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like this. 3-wave move back down into this 3, 4, and 5, and that would be what we want to see as a break of the channel and a break to the upside. Having a look at the daily CPR lines here, what we can see is that we are actually printed a lower CPR line. Now this is indicating initial bearish bias here, but if we do manage to reclaim this, we could actually see price move up back into this area of the 71.87 and this high here of this 72.16. Now, if we did see something like that, where this is just a 3-wave move, this could still align with that idea of a break to the downside here. If we do see this actually push up higher though, what we would be looking as possible targets for today would be the 72.88. We have the 73.59 and this 74.56 as potential targets. But the first thing that I'd be looking for here, if we do look for something like a breakout, is a break above that previous daily high, a retest, and then looking to actually move away. If we, however, continue to reject off these central lines here, what we could see is price could actually be gravitated to the downside here. 70 cents 46 is our previous daily low, which we'll be keeping an eye on, and then this 70 cents 20. If we start to see price breaking down below this S1 line and we actually look to move up and find resistance in this, this could align with us breaking down here and starting to see price move down towards some of these lower levels for today, which would be the 69.84, this 68.51, and this 67.80 as possible targets. Now we're going to flip this over onto the weekly and have a look at what we are seeing here. So on the weekly CPR lines, we're actually below our S1 line. So if we do see price move back to the upside here, potentially we could find resistance at this 72.28. If we do, however, just look to push to the downside here, possible support could be found at this 68.85 and this level lower down here of the 64.90 during this week. If we do see price starting to break to the upside here, where we start to see a bigger ABC pattern, I'm going to be keeping an eye on these highs here, where we would be seeing the 76.51 and this 75.92 as potential resistance if we do see price push back up into these levels. Now there's not a lot of time left, but if we do see price move back above these and we find support during this week, we could actually see an interaction with some of these higher zones. And 79.86, we have this 83.62 and this 87.11 as possible upside targets for this week. Now as well as that, we have the monthly CPRs, which we're going to have a look at here. We can see that we're still currently holding these CPR lines here. If we do continue to hold this level, then we have potential that price could look to find support and move to the upside here. Targets to the upside for this month is this 87.69, which would actually be a retest of these highs. Then higher up here, we have these levels of this 109 and this 127 as possible targets for this month. But once again, we don't have a lot of time left for these CPRs this month. We will get new ones printed at the beginning of next month. Now, if we do start to lose this level here, what we could see is that price could actually move back down to some of these lower CPR lines here. We have the central line at the 69.31, which could be possible support, and the 67.72 as an alternate support lower down here. So that would align a little bit more with the idea that this is A, B, and then we're going to see a bit more of a C wave to the downside here. So we're going to be keeping an eye on those if we do move into them. If we start to break down in a bigger way here, we lose those central CPR lines. We do have downside targets still for this month at this 47.79. So going to be keeping an eye on that if we do see price move down. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on the bell notification so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.